Hey, everybody, we're here for the new episode of Five for Talking, mostly Leafs edition, a little bit of other things. We're just going to jump right into this. I'm here with Caps, the captain of the show. Before we get into Leafs, because I'm assuming we're just going to mostly hang around with Leafs, there was something I noticed today that I just wanted to point out. I know you're not really like fully engrossed in this, but whatever you have to say on it. Right now, the Vegas Golden Knights are 3-0 and have looked absolutely fantastic. And the Tampa Bay Lightning are 1-2, and even in their win, did not look good.
I've noticed Tampa has always had a slow starts in the last couple of seasons, but they get a chance. They kind of turn it on by the time November rolls around. I mean, look at Philly. I think Philly's 2-0, aren't they?
Yeah, but they'll fall off.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing with Vegas. Eventually, they're going to fall off a little bit, but I'm not surprised with Tampa, to be honest. I've come to know that Tampa just does this all the time, and then they tend to turn the Jets on around mid-November or something like that, and then they're one of the top teams in the league. I think Pittsburgh is doing amazing right now. Calgary is having a strong start. I think they beat Colorado and Edmonton. So, yeah, I mean, it's still very, very early on in the season.
Okay, so here's a weird one for me, and then I think maybe this is it. The Minnesota Wild came into the season projected as arguably a top 5, if not top 3 overall defensive team, including the goalies that they had going for them. They have now lost both of their first 2 games, and both games let in 7 goals. They have a 14 goals against in 2 games.
Man, if they don't turn it around in the next maybe 5 games, I can see their coach being let go. Yeah.
Hey, yeah, it's a weird one.
It's a weird one.
I honestly think this was my take on it. I think if they don't turn it around in the next 5 games and they continue to get scored on like this, Marc-Andre Fleury is going to retire.
I think it's possible.
I think he's just going to call it quits.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that.
Because, I mean, you let in 14 goals in 2 games. From the highlights that I seen, he didn't look very good himself, not to mention the defense was really bad. But
yeah, I don't think he was getting help. I don't think he was getting much help.
He does take some time usually in seasons to get it going, though. So him personally, because it happened last year, happened the year before that.
I want to give these guys the benefit of the doubt. I mean, look at Campo last night. He got pulled after the first period by letting 4 goals. It's very, very early on in the season. I mean, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt.
But like you said about yesterday's game specifically, or sorry, by the time this gets posted, Saturday night's game,
yep,
it wasn't Campbell's fault. And in my opinion, when you make a goalie change or something, you're trying to shake up how everybody feels on the ice. But like if the defense is the problem and you change the goalie, you validated the defense, making them feel like, okay, it's not my fault, it's the goalie's fault.
Which sometimes I don't agree with pulling the goalie. I mean, I'm more about, I think Bargo and you would agree on this. Bench the players that are playing like crap.
Yeah,
bench them.
The defensemen that are playing like crap. I'll put some of my forwards on defense and bench the defensemen. But I think
it's going to piss off the other guy. It's going to piss off your teammates because they're going to have to take the brunt.
Exactly, and you want that. You want them to take it out. I mean, I know that's not the kind of mentality people have nowadays, but that works in a hockey locker room. And to me, but the only other option I see here is Jack Campbell, and he is very well known for having mental instability. And it could be the coach saw that something was going on with him and was like, maybe I should bench him now before it gets any worse, right?
Maybe. I mean, I will tell you this much because I watched maybe 90% of the game. After they made the goalie change, they started playing way better. They were playing a lot better, which kind of surprised me because I still believe that it wasn't necessarily Campbell's fault. But hey, I guess whatever message was sent, they got, and they were able to almost tied up. I think it was ended up being 4-3. So, going back to Minnesota's case, I think I think you're right, man. If nothing happens in the next little bit, you might see some big changes. Maybe a coach getting fired, or possibly Fleury retiring. So,
Yeah, who knows if they don't do well this season, just generally, I feel like they're gonna rebuild because you have Kaprizov, you're obviously going to keep him, but you have guys like Zuccarello that are aging, and your defensive pieces. You keep Hartman maybe and Zuccarello, and Kaprizov, and you blow up the rest of the team and just start all over, or try to sign a big name in the offseason. Anyways, we'll move on from this.
cool.
If you're seeing this video, we're filming on Sunday. It will be posted on Monday. So, but there's no games today, which I found very strange. Like the season
Really?
started and there are 0 games today.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I don't get that. Let's talk Leafs. You open this up.
I just want to touch on the Leafs a little bit. Kind of grade how they've been playing thus far. You're going to have to help me out in terms of how they played against Montreal, because I only saw highlights. But from what I gather, pretty much the whole team didn't play well at all versus Montreal. But they had a heck of a bounce back against Washington, and they played well against a hard battling team in Ottawa last night. I'm looking at the lines. Maybe Marner, Matthews, Bunting, they don't start on time. I just got to say that. But they definitely turn it on in the second and third period. But, for any coach, it has to be very frustrating because you want your team to start on time. And if you're going to, go far in the playoffs, you need to start on time. It's as basic as that. I think thus far, Tavares and Nylander has probably been their best forwards. Yankrock and Kerfoot, they seem to be having some good chemistry. Engvall looks lost to me.
Absolutely lost.
Engvall looks lost.
I noticed that too. He doesn't seem to fit with anybody that he plays with. He's out there. He's not really playing defense or offense. I'm not sure
what's thrown around too.
Yeah, and he's a big guy, so that's kind of weird. For me, for my money, Camp has been the star of this team. Mm-hmm. He doesn't stand out at all because he's doing what he's supposed to do. He got a goal the other night. Mm-hmm. He's playing really well, and the power play going into this, they've been decent. So, I
think very highly of that fourth line. You mentioned it before. I really enjoy watching that fourth line. They're the most physical. They're probably the hardest to play against, and they really, they really motivate that team. You said Camp has been playing very, very well. I don't know how you feel about it, but yeah.
I do. I think there's like Kerfoot, for example. I think Steve Dangle said it the best, and I'll try to remember the quote. It was something like, he's the best at showing you how much he's not doing anything. And it's like, I kind of noticed that because he looks like he's out there really trying, like really hard, but he's not actually doing anything. And it's like, it's a very awkward look because you're like, oh, look, he's really going. But then by the end of the game, when you see like his metrics, you're like, he literally didn't do anything. His like puck possession, everything, breakout, takeaways is like 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. But he looks like he's trying really hard.
Yeah.
I don't really have a problem with Kerfoot. I just thought that was funny. So for me, the first game was an embarrassment.
Yep.
If you look at it, I believe they only had 17 shots, the Canadians, but you would be very deceived because they skated circles around the Leafs for most of that game.
They took advantage. They definitely took advantage. From the highlights I saw, there were a lot of 2-on-1s, and I feel bad for Murray.
Yeah,
in that
I
game.
agree. I don't think that game was Murray's fault, but I also think now that we've seen what's happened with Murray being injured, I think he was already injured and he tried to cover it up to not to just like keep the start. And then in the practice, he really hurt himself, and they were like, "Oh crap, this guy's actually hurt." Because
Yeah,
I
I
feel like
think
he
he
didn't
felt
want to
really
lose the
bad.
starting job, right?
Yeah, I think he felt really, really bad, and it sucks that happened, but you know,
Yeah.
I I think we were both nervous when they picked him up, and we're kind of expecting that something like this was going to happen. But when they picked up Samsonov, we were a little more comfortable, and just based on how he's been performing the last couple of games, I mean, I'm cool with letting him.
Yeah, he's the future of the team. Realistically, if you're smart as the Leafs, that's the guy you're gonna hold on to. He's your next Campbell or Anderson, and I think he played really well in Ottawa for the whole game. Against Washington, he struggled early on. I think the whole team did. So my cause for concern, that's like I'm not worried what the Leafs are going to do. They're going to make the playoffs. It's everything after that that's where you think about it, right? But losing the first game, especially to your rival, and they always lose to Montreal. It's like I don't understand the deal with the Leafs and losing to Montreal. Montreal could have nobody playing except the people from the stands, and the Leafs would find a way to lose to them. But I I think you just got to set the tone in that game. But that aside, they went into game 2 against Washington and played the first half of it also looking really terrible. And then they came out in like the second half of the second, they improved, and then in the third they were a completely different team. This is like the Leafs that we know, and they played really well. And then in game 3, it was like it was all on the table. The Leafs played really well for like a majority of the game. Justin Hall, I don't know who that was, came pinching in from the point. Maybe we got to give him a second look this time around.
I mean, for all the Leaf fans out there, yeah, we can be very hard on them. We want these guys to succeed. I mean, Justin Hall, I would love it if he would be an awesome. If he would do that every single night, hey, that would be awesome. It's just overall, like, a lot of the mistakes he makes kind of, overshadow some of the good things he does.
Absolutely.
That first game, I think you mentioned it. That first game, Muzzin and Hall was probably the worst out of all the D. But then they turned it around in that Washington game. Muzzin was just throwing hits like no tomorrow. I mean, I feel bad because he threw a monster hit and then he got called for a penalty, which is BS to me.
Wow.
But
in the Ottawa game, we'll talk about penalties, but continue.
You want to talk about their best defenseman? I think Mark Giordano is probably their best defenseman right now.
He's the most consistent. I said that too. For a guy who's playing on probably your third unit, he's out there and he's logging a lot of minutes, especially for his age. And he still has a shot. But I mean, at this, you got to set the tone early on. Maybe you can take the foot off the gas a little bit in the midseason and give them a break, but they need to make sure that they're rolling now. Because you could see it. And it's not, I'm not worried about him at all because I know he's an absolute top 5 elite talent. But Matthews does not look very good in these first 3 games. He had brief moments where he was like, you're like, okay. But then the rest of it was like, but he did throw his weight around in Washington.
Yeah, he did.
Was hitting people.
He did. He tends to turn it on later on in the game, and that's not what you want. I mean, you need him to get going right from the first.
Yeah, well, you said it. They need to be on time. They definitely need to be on time.
Yeah, one thing I do want to bring up is Dennis Malgin. I think he's earned his spot on the team. I really do, but I really haven't noticed him that much in the last 2 games. I think if it keeps going, I mean, I don't think he's doing anything wrong, or in particular, I just don't notice him at all. But I would have to say that if it keeps going the way it's going, they may have to look at possibly switching someone out. And maybe making a couple adjustments here and there.
Well, Nick Robertson has been called up.
And so is Wayne Simmons and Mete. I think the best thing for them to do for next game is put Robertson in that second line on the wing and put Dennis Mulligan on the third line and sit and bench Engvall.
You want to know what I think?
No, go for it.
So take this one, okay? I think you maybe for one game knock off whoever you think is your worst defenseman for Mete, just for one game to like get them back in check. I don't think Mete, I want him as in my starting six, but
me too.
I think you also take Engvall out and you take Mulligan out and you put in Robertson and Simmons and just see what happens. Because Mulligan, I agree with you that I do want Mulligan there, but I think because he hasn't shown up, you need to show him like you're not an important piece on this team yet. You can lose this spot right now.
Yeah.
And I think he needs to feel that. Engvall is kind of more safe because he knows he got paid. He knows where his spot is on this team. So I don't think benching him hurts him. I think he just knows that, okay, I got to try a little bit harder. But like Mulligan's going to be like, oh crap, I might never make it back on the roster.
It's just the problem is I'm more frustrated with Engvall than I am with Mulligan. I expect a lot more from Engvall.
I agree, but I think
especially with that size, man, like
a little bit of shakeup might help all around, right?
Yeah. Who comes out for Mete?
That's the thing. I'm not 100% here because Hall and Muzzin both looked good. Giordano's been fine.
And the only reason why I'm going to say probably Muzzin, and the only reason why I say that is because I just, I feel as though he's fragile. You know what I mean? I'm afraid he's going to get hurt.
Who's Brody playing with?
Riley.
So Brody, Riley, Muzzin, Hall, and Giordano's with who?
Sandin.
Maybe you bench Sandin. So I haven't even seen Sandin for 3 games.
Yeah, Giordano would come out maybe just to give him some rest, but he's been their best defenseman.
Yeah, I don't think he needs it. If Giordano is okay, number one, he's played a lot of seasons, and he's a leader. He knows when he needs to come out. If he says he's okay, you let him play. Right now I'm perfectly fine with this team, and I think even if you let him get all the rest he needs, Murray is out for probably a month, let's say. You can easily cover that month with Samsonov because he played 44 games last year. He can handle playing a month where maybe 1 or 2 games get covered by Shalgren. And I think he'll be fine.
It's only, when you calculate, it's only 10 games he's going to be gone for. So it should be enough. It should be fine.
Yeah, even if it's 11, Shalgren can play 1 or 2, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
There's not tons of back-to-backs either. If you look at most of the hockey schedule, it's day on, day off, day on, day off. There's not really a lot of back-to-backs.
Yeah. And I don't know if I said this already, but Murray played okay.
Like, he was fine. It's just they let him down defensively.
Yeah. I think he'll be okay.
I've never had an issue with Murray's skill. As we know, we've had this conversation so many times. It's how fragile he is.
Yeah.
It's just, and it happened right away, which makes me even more upset for how much I stuck up for him. That it's like immediately you came in, but that's why I think he was already hurt, and he just tried to like play it off and stay in the lineup, and then hurt himself more at practice. And it was like, okay, well, you got to shut it down.
Yeah. I just want to give a shout out to Keith for that. Yeah, after that first game for berating his team and telling him straight up, hey, this may be the first game, but you playing like that against a team like Montreal is unacceptable. And he called him out, and that's what he needs to do.
The only thing worse than losing to Montreal, which might not even be worse because they are arguably the worst team and they're your number 1 rival of all time. But possibly if you lost to Philadelphia, who I think is inarguably the worst team in the NHL, who happens to be 2-0. Mind you, they didn't win any really like big games. But I feel like that would have been worse in a way. But now that I think about being the rival, like it's so upsetting that Montreal, even in the year when they made it all the way, okay, they were not that good of a team. And if you count that year, the year before, and the last 2 seasons, the Leafs do not have that great of a record against Montreal.
They don't.
And it's like they haven't been like a powerhouse or anything. They don't, not to say that they weren't good going, they made it to the finals. But if you look at their run to the finals, it's not like how the other side, how Tampa Bay's run to the final was. You know what I mean? They had the easy route to get there, minus the Leafs, who just shit the bed.
Yeah. Although, I mean, their finals and semifinals opponents were pretty decent.
They got spanked by Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
And Vegas shot themselves in the foot in 2 back-to-back games where Fleury gave them a win in one game, and then they took all the penalties in the next game and gave them another win. But yeah,
took advantage.
I know that's what I'm saying, right? Like sometimes it's just a perfect run for you. But the last thing I wanted to talk about was the really bad penalties the Leafs took against Ottawa. Marner has been doing this a lot, and I think I'm pretty sure I called it out last season. Towards the end of last year and in the playoffs and so far in these games, he does this thing where he grabs onto people's arms. And he got called for it in Ottawa after not getting called for it in the first 2 games. And then, like, I think not even 10 minutes later, Campo did the exact same thing where he grabbed onto Stützle's arm. It's like, why is the natural reaction for these guys to grab onto somebody?
Yeah. Although I do like that Campo penalty was soft to me.
It was a bit iffy. I agree.
They missed a penalty too. I remember when that Ottawa player cleared the puck. They totally missed that. That should have been a penalty.
Stützle definitely dove on the Campo one.
Yeah. Yeah, I really don't have too much to add to that other than the fact that you were absolutely correct. They need to get their shit together.
Yeah, for a number 2 guy on our team playing on the top line, playing top minutes on the penalty kill and power play, Marner needs to know better than to grab onto people.
Absolutely correct. Correct on that. Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. I'm good on that, man.
I don't have anything else.
Did we ever talk about Carey Price?
We did not.
Go for it if you want.
You go for it if you want.
I feel bad for the guy. I mean, he was at the Raptors game. It was a couple nights ago when they played in Montreal, so it was nice to see him. He looked like he was in good spirits, but it's a shame what happened, and good luck to him if he decides to hang up the skates. He's going to be recognized as one of the premier goalies of the NHL, and it sucks to see that kind of stuff happen.
I don't think he's going to. I don't think he will.
Okay.
He's too strong-willed to do that, like hard-headedness. He's going to go down as on raw skill, one of the greatest goalies of all time. Just on terms of statistics, though, I don't even think he's making the Hall of Fame. Like, he hasn't broken any records even for Montreal, I'm pretty sure. We can definitely deep dive into this one day, but it's kind of one of those situations like the retirees from this year where it's like PK Subban had a great career too, but like he's probably not even going to make the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's kind of shocking, especially for Price. It's an outlier because Price arguably is on raw talent, top 5 goalies of all time. You know what I mean? And to me, that's just insanity.
Yep.
Where Vasilevsky is in the same boat, except he's just managed to stay healthy for his whole career.
And won 2 cups.
Montreal had chances to be really good, but Carey Price couldn't stay healthy. Their defense couldn't stay healthy. I mean, and now this year you're looking at the situation where they're playing with Jake Allen and no Jake Weber or Shea Weber on top of not having Carey Price.
I think eventually Montreal is going to be a better team in the next few years.
I think they got one more draft. This year's draft coming up is going to be where they cement themselves as like a back in the mix.
Yeah, maybe a couple trades away too. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all I got, man.
Yeah, me too. Thank you guys for watching. Let us know what you think about the Leafs and their season currently in the comments, and like the video. Peace out.